In this video, we'll be running through how we accelerated KOOKAI's Australia growth by over 100% and expanded US sales by over 650%. Firstly, if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube for more content like this. We put videos out like this every single day. We've also done this for over 250 plus e-commerce brands in the last few years, but let's step back for a second and provide some context on this case study. KOOKAＩ is an Aussie-grown 9-figure clothing brand. When they started with us, their online segment was already in a really good position. They were growing online considerably year on year, and they had strong initiatives in place to position them for future growth. But there were a few problems. ROAS looked good, almost too good, and international expansion through paid media was a struggle. The problem: KOOKAI had already built a really impressive empire, doing 9+ figures in the women's fashion space, which is an incredibly competitive niche. Operating at 9 figures in revenue, they were seeing the obscured reality of running Meta and Google ads at scale, which is that the platforms claim absolutely everything. So ROAS looks great, attributed revenue looks fantastic, but are the platforms actually the ones driving the purchases? Not to mention that at this scale, 5 to 10% swings in CAC, MER, etc., just efficiency as a whole, impacts the bottom line massively. Despite their substantial revenue, they recognized a critical gap in their marketing approach, gaining clarity over the incremental impact of the platforms, then building a growth roadmap. KOOKAI understood that their paid media channels were good, but probably not great. You can't afford to have good channels when you're doing 7, 8, 9 figures in annual revenue. Successfully implementing an approved approach would allow them to drive substantial additional revenue without increasing ad spend, improve cash flow predictability through clarity over the impact of paid media spend, increase customer lifetime profit by not overspending on existing customers, and accelerate global expansion with confidence. The challenge was clear. The goal was straightforward: gain clarity, build a scaling roadmap, and execute. There were 2 goals that we held ourselves to. Number 1 was determine the incremental impact of Australia, New Zealand, US, UK, Spain, and all the other regions. And number 2 was to increase measurable performance by at least 30%. Who am I? I'm Nathan Pergera, co-founder of Blue Sense Digital. We've generated over $300 million in attributed revenue over the past 4 years. We were number 51 on AFR Fast Starters 2024, Emerging Agency of the Year, Startup of the Year, Young Business Leader of the Year, and there's more awards that we could count, but I want to dive straight into it. Our partnership with KOOKAI. The starting point. As a 9-figure brand, even an 8-figure brand, you really lack clarity over measuring the incremental impact of paid media spend. It becomes very obfuscated. And so you end up following ineffective metrics. You either rely on attributed metrics, you go down the path of triple L or third-party attribution softwares, or you try to correlate returns using MMMs, but they're all fundamentally flawed. And so you end up in this position of budget uncertainty. Without clear incremental lift studies and ROI visibility, road mapping growth becomes near impossible. Here's the immediate results in Australia for Google. We doubled year-on-year growth rate from 119% to 362%. So KOOKAI was already compounding growth year-on-year at a really incredible rate, and we almost 3x'd it from the current growth rate. What about Facebook? Facebook was relatively flat year-on-year in November and December, and then we came in January and took that to 400% year-on-year growth. And then in February, there was a slight pullback to 250% year-on-year growth. And so that's an average of 0% year-on-year growth up to 327%. How were the results achieved so quickly? We used what we see as the 3 pillars of performance marketing. And we haven't even shown you the US and Spain results yet, which are even crazier than Australia. Step 1, creative velocity and diversity. Why is this important? Your success on Meta is determined by your ability to introduce high volumes of creative that are differentiated at a cost that falls beneath each ad's expected return. And so what this requires you knowing is, number 1, what's your average expected value of an ad? When you introduce an ad into an ad account, how much expected revenue will you get? And number 2 is, what is your high-performing hit rate percentage? And so when you introduce 100 ads into an ad account, what percentage of those ads will actually perform above a threshold bar of success? Once you know those 2 numbers, you can now predict profit contribution at an ad level, and you can begin forecasting and building a marketing calendar around your revenue targets in conjunction with creative volume requirements. And so if you want to hit X amount of revenue in November, you know exactly how many creatives you need to launch in November to hit that revenue target. And so that's exactly what we did with KOOKA. In fact, we went and ramped creative volume by 120%. Now, the reason why we could do that so quickly was, number one, an incredible shout out to the KOOKAï team for being able to even accommodate that kind of operational change. But number two was because their profit contribution per ad was positive. It was outweighing the cost to create. And so because of that, we knew that we could just go and ramp creative velocity and we would make more money. And that's exactly what happened. Step number two, technical account structure. Why is it important? The purpose of paid media is unwaveringly to acquire new customers. Anyone who goes and argues that paid media can be used as a retention tool, I want you to ask them to show you the data because they won't be able to. We have run so many incrementality tests internally where we have taken existing customer lists, spent more on them, and measured whether there were any incremental conversions that were gained from an existing customer list. There was zero. I've never seen it work. I've never seen any conclusive data that shows that you should allocate high volumes of paid media spend to existing customers. And so with that understanding, if we're on the same page, Google and Meta are working against you. They want to spend all your ad dollars on targeting your existing customers. Why? So that they can increase their attribution to the platform, meaning that you think the platforms are delivering revenue when they actually aren't. Therefore, your accounts need to be structured and your KPIs need to be set up to align with that truth. Now, it's great theory. What does it look like in practice? I could sit here for the next 2 hours and give you 200 ways in which this applies into the accounts. And I'm not going to do that. I'll just give you a few points. You can go and take them, which is on Meta. Heavy audience exclusions on existing customers for all cold targeting campaigns. If you're running cold targeting campaigns, you cannot target existing customers in there. Exclude every list type that you can get into the platform. Number two, also exclude website visitors. You will end up in a position where these cold targeting campaigns become heavy middle of funnel campaigns, which is not what we want, particularly if you're doing 8 to 9 figures. We want them pushing into net new reach. And so you need to exclude website visitors. And then lastly, you need to switch all of your campaigns over to 7-day click. In any 8 to 9 figure account, 1-day view is going to cause massive over attribution within the platform. And it's actually going to reinforce the machine learning to further optimize towards views through conversions, which are people that are existing customers, not new customers. On Google, you want to eliminate all branded key terms from anything that isn't a branded campaign. Number two, you really want to move away from Performance Max reliance because Performance Max is just this heavy middle of funnel campaign, and we see that in all of our data. And number three is you likely want to change your attribution windows, either shorten them or potentially even lengthen them, just depending on the insights of how long your customer journey takes and what platforms people are attributing over. What's the impact of all this? US growth in 30 days. In 30 days of taking over the US, we increased non-branded revenue on Google by 227%, and we grew meta ads, new customer, 7-day click. So we're shortening or delineating down as much as we can into the true impact of the platform. 645% increase in new customers month on month. Step 3, data integrity and assurance. This might be the most important piece of all of these steps, particularly for an 8 to 9 figure business. Data integrity underpins the quality of decision-making within paid media. We work to verify and validate the accuracy, completeness, and reliability of our clients' sales data over time to enable better judgment and decision-making across the organization. Everyone says that they make data-driven decisions. You literally see it plastered everywhere, but they are making data-driven decisions on data that is flawed. And so you're not really making data-driven decisions unless you're putting an enormous amount of energy into making sure that the data that you're using has integrity. Majority of data does not. You might be jumping right away to, they probably have, we know they have some developers in-house, they're working on some AI solutions, they probably have some kind of attribution solution here, custom. Wrong. And that's not where your mind should be jumping. Attribution is a futile effort. I completely understand the compelling idea of attribution. It's incredibly compelling, and I went down this lane for 2 years, which is that if you can accurately assign appropriate value to every action within a customer journey, then you can theoretically perfectly allocate your dollars relative to their impact. The issue is that attribution is an unknowable reality, and all it does is lead to obfuscated decision-making more than anything else. The only thing attribution I've ever seen do is confuse people. It just means that when you come to a meeting and you have your e-commerce manager, you have your marketing manager, you have your founder, and then you might have us, everyone's looking at a different number. No one knows what's going on. Instead, incrementality testing gives you the truth. What does that look like in practice? Well, we ran a GeoLift experiment in the US, native within the Meta platform. We also did our own manual correlation GeoLift test with a specific US state. So we selected a state based on a bunch of different factors, and you can do this very wrong. And so you need to make sure you know how to do this correctly. And then we increase budget substantially in that state. And we measure the distribution from the rest of the cohort in the US in regards to the new customer lift. We then also did the exact same thing in Australia, which is very difficult to do because there's not many homogeneous states, and so you need to be very selective here. And we also ran in-platform GeoLift experiments in Australia as well. And the conclusion of that was now we know with very precise accuracy what the incremental blended CAC is when we want to bump budgets up in these different regions. And the great thing for this brand is it's incredibly profitable to do so. Now, you might still be watching this video and go, I have no idea what incrementality testing is. If you go and Google for GeoLift incrementality test or type it into YouTube, we're the #1 ranked video on both on Google and YouTube. I would strongly recommend, even right now, open up a new tab, search it, open that video up. It's going to give you a really good explanation on how this testing methodology works. It is much better than attribution. What's the result of this? Well, we doubled revenue in Spain within 30 days. We launched our first campaigns ever in Spain, and right out of the gates, we delivered an incremental ROI of 5.6. I cannot stress enough those two words, incremental ROI. When any case study video that you ever watch puts these numbers together, number one, they're never going to put numbers together based on the difference in year-on-year growth rates. And that's what we've done this whole time. I haven't said that we grew the account 600% year on year. I've said that they were growing 200% and we took that to 600%. And then number two is no one's going to talk about incremental ROI because it's going to be a worse number. Now, what is incremental ROI? Why am I staying on this? If we looked at ROAS here was a 20, it was a 30 even, because they already had an existing presence. There's already stores in Spain. People already know about the brand. There's already existing organic revenue. And so when you launch onto the platforms, you're immediately going to have a ton of over-attribution just due to the fact of the existing brand presence. We don't count any of that. All we look at is how much incremental new customer revenue did we generate against the expected outcome with the trajectory of current revenue growth. And that was sitting at a 5.6, which means that we achieved 100% month-on-month growth in the region. So what's the TLDR? We focused on the 3 pillars of performance marketing: creative velocity and diversity, technical account structure, and data integrity and assurance. Once we had clarity over paid media's impact, we had the confidence to be able to ramp budgets, which resulted in the Australian paid media channels growing by 100%, the US growing by 650%, and Spain doubling within 30 days. Now, if you're an 8 to 9 figure brand watching this video, I have an offer for you, which is that we're currently doing free paid media audits plus action plans. And I can guarantee you that this is the best audit that your team will ever receive, and we'll give it to you completely for free. In fact, at the top of the screen right now, that is a response from a $25 million direct-to-consumer brand off the back of one of our audits. Awesome report, man. Very insightful. Probably the most beneficial audit I've watched in a very long time. And this is the response that we get to all of our audits. I can say this and sit here on this slide with such confidence because I've personally completed over 1,000 Meta and Google ad account audits in the last 5 years. And we're not going to stop at Meta and Google. We're going to get into your Shopify. We're going to pull our internal consulting sheets together. We're going to pull our internal software into this. We're going to give you everything we can give you to set you up for success. Here's how it works. It's completely free. It only takes 15 minutes of your time. We just need to square an NDA away and then get some context about your brand so that we don't go off in the wrong direction. I'll only have view-only access. And then within 48 hours, you'll get a complete roadmap on how to scale your ad account. With the audit, you'll get immediate remove wasted spend, improve your account structure. You'll know exactly how many ads you should be testing, not just now or next month, but we'll give you a revenue forecast for the next 12 months based on logarithmic regressions of historical data that sounds like jargon. It'll make sense in the audit. And we'll show you exactly how many tests you need to be doing weekly, daily to hit all of your targets. And most importantly, you're going to have a roadmap to grow faster. This audit isn't going to be, hey, tweak this bidding strategy or you should launch this kind of ad. It's going to be a roadmap towards growth. It doesn't matter if you're working with an agency or if you're currently in-house. We'll give you everything that you need to scale for free, no strings attached. So either scroll down on this landing page, click the link below, wherever it might be, book a call with us, and let's see how we can help you grow.